Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Jim Ramsey joining us again. So insightful, so helpful, and he's here with us, joining us again as a professional of the year. And Aletheia Marriage Counseling is the name of the company. He is the director and has been helping so many for so many years as a licensed marriage and family therapist. And he's been specialized in this since 1974 in California. But he offers his counseling online. So, letting you know, he has private marriage intensive, weekend retreats. Also, we're going to talk more about, the other places that he can work with you in person and, of course, out of state and the work that he does. Let me just have him say hello. Hi.
Hi, it's good to be here again.
You too. So tell me, you're in Montana, right?
Right. Yeah, we're
And
in the
you're
San Juan Valley in Montana.
beautiful and you're able to work with people in what states?
Well, Montana is where I'm at, but we have calls in from other parts of the country. I'm on the internet, so I get calls from different places.
Beautiful. And we've discussed a lot of the work you do and all you've done and some of your obstacles. I know you survived cancer. Unfortunately, you lost your wife and you've told us your trauma, your stories. You've been opening up to us. And I appreciate that. It makes you, who you are and you're able to help people and really empathize with them since you've yourself have been through a lot. And there's people out there that need that help, need that guidance. And I know we've talked a lot about marriage, about counseling and couples, and we're going to get back into it. But first and foremost, tell us how we can reach out to you.
Well, Aletheia marriagecounseling.com. My website is jimramseymt@gmail.com.
Perfect. And we all know, just want to make sure that they spell it correctly when you say the word, your business name. We got to spell it for them. Just Aletheia, marriagecounseling.com. And it's exciting to have you back here. Now, for today, I know we're going to dive into some, questions that we've been working on the past few weeks. And we're going to talk about, people being together and couples and let me ask just what is the best way to feel connected, maybe when you're apart from your partner for a few days?
No, that's really a relevant question, Jill. Quite often people work in the oil wells, the oil fields for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, on and off. They go on military projects where they're gone for a year, they have to go overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
The key is to get in touch with each other by phone or by computer on a daily basis. And for the man, the thing that guys got to understand is even though you're up your eyeballs in oil every day and there's nothing to talk about except oil, you feel like there's nothing to talk about. But the key is to talk about what's going on at home. The first thing you want to do when you talk to your wife is ask her, "How's it going there, babe?" And you're interested in home, the kids, the dog, the bills, anything and everything, because she needs to feel like you are there with her in spirit.
Yeah.
And so you volunteer to talk about her, ask her questions. She's ready to tell you things and take notes so that when you talk to her tomorrow, you can say, "How's your headache doing? Is it getting better? Or how, is the dog still sick? Or what happened to the hospital?" But you see, from interview to interview you have on the phone, you're checking in on what happened since I talked to you last. And then in the course of the conversation, you could tell about different things that happened to George there at work, or the truck broke down, or whatever. But don't get stalled out with there's nothing to talk about because she's waited all day to talk to you, you know, and you want to show interest. That way she feels close to you. She feels like you want to be home because you do. And that's the big thing for a woman. She's got to feel connected because you're asking the right questions, you're showing the right interest, you're talking about home.
And can I just ask this in this day and age, a lot of the younger generation, they're more about texting than about talking, right? And if they're on that mode, is that okay to have a text relationship as well? Because I feel like a lot of the youth that they're all texting, and I'm not even youth, I'm 46, but I do more texting than talking. And I feel like it's not as good, but it is something. What are your thoughts on technology when it comes to this for relationships?
Well, you have to honor each other's preferences. And you know,
Yes.
the younger ones all want to text. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem with texting is you don't feel connected as well, and you don't pick up the nuances of the voice and the face. You know, when you're talking, it's not only good to talk, but talk on Zoom if you can, or talk on FaceTime or something, because you really want to maximally connect. You don't want to kind of in some kind of a mechanized way. You know, you just wail some phrase off and they've sent some little phrase back. You can do that if that's what you want to do. But
Yeah.
we're seeing some real problems because of AI and because of the whole idea about relating. Now you got AI advising young people as to how to look sexy or how to get their attention or how to talk to a girl or this or that. These are things we used to learn by doing. You go to
Mm-hmm.
school together, you go on the playground together, you go and play sports, you're talking and laughing, you're relating, you're being yourself. That's what you want to be with somebody,
Yeah.
not some advised by AI formula. You know,
Yeah. Oh my
it's
goodness.
impersonal. It's really impersonal.
Oh my goodness. Well, let me ask you about as we evolve in relationships and we are getting involved in relationships. A lot of times there's blended families, right? And that's something we haven't talked about yet, right? It's not highlighted. So, what
Yeah.
are some of the most common challenges you see when dealing with blended families? And for those out there who may not know the term blended, it's can you share what that means specifically?
Yeah. Blended is where each of you bring children into a new family. You know, you've got two, she's got three, now you got five kind of thing. Um, and I think we talked a little bit about this in that it's good to let the kids know you before you decide to be married. You know, go on picnics and things, invite the kids, let the kids see you together, let them see their potential
Mm-hmm.
siblings, let them be kind of part of the courtship so that it's not like you come home and say, guess what, I'm getting married. But
Yeah.
once you are married, the big thing, there's two things that are really important. One is fairness. The kids need to feel like both of you are treating them fairly and you're not showing preferences. And that's
Yes.
hard not to do when your own children are a part of the mix. You tend to be closer to them. You want to try to be as fair with everybody as you can. The second thing that's really important is not to just try to step into the role of father and take on the authority. You basically look at it like I'm building a relationship with these children. I'm getting to know them. I'm interested in them. I'm interested in their sports, their schoolwork. I help them. I give them rides to school and back. You win the right to be a father or a mother. You
Mm-hmm.
show that you are interested in them as a human being, not just on deck as a new general that's going to be the new
The
commander
new
and
disciplinarian. Oh, I've had that happen
discipline.
before.
It's a big mistake. Then when it goes bad, then the man gets more and more frustrated, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
he's just doing what his dad did. I mean, you know, people don't realize how they come across sometimes to children.
Yeah, and that could scare the heck out of them. I've been in a very similar situation, and yeah, I agree. I think the parents should do the discipline. You could talk about it behind the scenes, your thoughts, your opinions, but I think it's really up to the parent to, especially if it's a new relationship, to
Yeah,
make that decision and for you not to step in to try to be a dictator or tell them what to do because that'll scare the kids and their view of you. Let the mom be the bad guy for now, right? And in due time, you could become the bad guy, but I feel like that takes a while to have that type of authority and say over, your soon to be spouse or your new spouse's child, or if we're talking in the dating world, it's that's a lot. It's a
it
lot.
is. It really is. Another thing you can do as a couple with a new family together is kind of set up guidelines for everybody and have a form of discipline that is not corporal, it's not getting angry, but it's just like we were courteous to each other. We don't hit people. We, you know, just kind of come up with different things that we agree are part of our family rules. And then you can have some kind of a chart or something that if a person violates one of these, then there's a consequence already spelled out. You have the
Yeah.
rules and you have the consequences. That way, it's set up by both parents and bought into by the children up front. And that way, you're just having a consequence. And I use the example of getting a ticket as a driver. I
Yeah.
know the rules. The policeman comes up and says, "You did so and so," and I say, "Yeah, I guess I did." And then I get a ticket. I know what it's going to be. The more
Yeah.
you can have discipline that way it's fair and it's predictable, and both parents have bought in, and the kids know about it.
Yes, because that's always, I hear a lot of stories and about divorced couples who the father's parenting one way and the mother's parenting the other way, and they really need to be together on the same page because it's all about the children and that benefits them to have the same type of structure, same roles, same discipline,
Yes,
not different from different places because that's you know the mind better than anyone. I mean, that's hard on a mind, especially a young mind to handle.
that's exactly right. Another thing will happen sometimes is a child will push you or test you,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
because they're sure that because they have a
Yeah.
friend at school that hates their father, stepfather, that I'm
Mhm.
probably going to have to hate you. So they may say things or do things that are aggravating. Try to understand. Try to just roll with it rather than react. Don't be overly sensitive to what a kid does or doesn't do. Try to be patient with them.
Absolutely, because that's their way of acting out. God bless. Amazing advice there. Now, what about in your marriage? How do you deal with differences? Because there's always going to be difference, right? How do you deal with that?
Well, there's differences, and then there are differences.
Okay.
In all
Let's.
the research that the Gottman Institute came up with, they found that there's maybe 50 or 60% of the things that uh, are different from the two of you that maybe are annoying that are really not going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
She's always going to run late, or he's always not going to quite do what you should think should do, changing his
Mm-hmm.
shorts or socks or something. There, you learn to live with warts and all, in that regard. Like if you use the analogy of your body, maybe you've got a kink in your neck that's there quite often. You learn to live
Mm-hmm.
with it. You have a trick knee or whatever. In a marriage, you have little things that irritate you, but you're
Yep.
not going to go out and off yourself over it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stay in there. So the same thing with a marriage. There are things you live with that maybe aren't your favorite things, but you're focused on the things you really admire and appreciate and respect and love about each other. And again, positivity is humongously important in a marriage. But having said that, there are differences that are important that have to do with gender, have to do with your different big backgrounds, how the way you grew up. There's certain ways, certain reasons why you're attracted to each other. And you really, by just naturally, are kind of attracted to somebody that can complement you. They can be strong where you're weak, or they're smarter where you don't know that. You complement each other. But the problem with some people is they're threatened by
Yeah.
a partner being stronger than they are in some area, and or different than they are. And so they're always trying to make the partner be like me. Men tend to be this way a lot, but everybody does. Women want us to be more emotional. Men want us to be more rational, etc. But the point is, honor your differences. Realize that you blend together, and let their strength be our strength. Let my strength
Yeah.
be our strength, rather than compete about how we should be. Let people be who they are, and then try to value what they offer more than just reacting because they're different or they're, not like you.
Got it. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that. Did you want to elaborate any more on differences before we talk a little bit about some of these common differences and how you can minimize conflict with them? I would love to hear.
Well, I think that one of the differences that's always there is that men and women are wired differently brain-wise. We're men are more wanting to go to the left hemisphere of the brain where they can be calm and they can be rational, they can figure things out and not be emotional because they can do that. The corpus callosum
Mm.
doesn't connect the right and left hemisphere as completely as it does for a woman. It's actually damaged when they're in the womb, and that makes them able to go to the left side. Women have to use their whole brain all the time. So when we understand that, she cannot get away from her emotions like we can.
Mm-hmm.
And those emotions accumulate and they can make her feel more and more disconnected. And so, one of the things a man's got to understand is I need to let her get those things out when she needs to and check to see if her fears are confirmed. She may think that I'm slipping some way away from her because the connections seem to be frayed. I'm not giving her as much attention as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she may get emotional about that. Well, you as a man have to understand that's one of her differences from you.
Yeah.
She's noticing things that are nonverbal behaviors and so on that make her feel worried about what's going on with us. You
Mm-hmm.
don't notice that at all because you're on another track. You're thinking about
True.
work and whatever. And so the more you kind of learn each other's languages, learn how to relate to them. And that means a woman be understand, well, he's on this rational level. He's always trying to fix things, and then you can help him say, honey, I just need to talk about some things that are worrying me and upsetting me. And I just need you to understand to kind of help me through this. That'll help him listen to you. But if he hears you're upset as meaning there's something wrong with us, and typically a man's very sensitive to strong emotions, and he wants to shut that off as quick as he can. He wants to make us happy, so we laugh and we're normal, not upset.
Yeah.
So his attempts to fix things make it worse because you don't feel like he's hearing you. So there's those kinds of differences need to be understood and processed, and so you get better at it. Otherwise it just continues to be a problem.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And do you want to talk about, emotional triggers? Because a lot of us are triggered by emotions, and sometimes it's maybe negative. So, how would you deal with negative, emotional triggers?
Well, the overall principle that a person's got to really, really realize and understand is that you have to determine, each of you, that I am always going to assume the best about my partner because I love them, I respect them, I'm lucky to be with them, they've given their life to me. I'm going to assume the best about them. Okay. So if they say something that sounds mean or insensitive or harsh or cruel or rejecting or something, I must be misunderstanding. Yeah, I'm being triggered by something, but maybe it's not exactly where they're coming from. So rather than react to that, I'll say something like, "I'm sorry, can you explain what you're saying? I'm not sure what you're meaning here." And when they start explaining, usually the trigger will go away. It was something that the way they said it or just a certain word triggered you. Another way you can go is say, I don't think you meant it this way, i.e., I'm assuming the best. But it sounds like you're suggesting or saying this or that, like you're suggesting I'm lazy or irresponsible or something, And they will say something like, "Wow, I'm sure glad you said that. I don't think you're lazy. Um, but what we're talking about here is this thing we've said we're going to do for a week, and I was wondering if we're going to do it today or tomorrow. And maybe I'm a little bit impatient because I'm anxious to get that thing taken care of. Oh yeah, I can see that. I know we need to get on that. And sometimes I procrastinate, but I sure don't want
Yep.
you to think I'm lazy. Well, you're not lazy. You really work hard. Okay, that's the kind of thing that happens when you check it
Yes.
out rather than believe the worst. See, if they say something sounds bad, you don't want to assume the worst and say, well, that's what they think about me. You want to check it out. That makes a big difference
No, it
because
sure
most
does.
marital problems are based on misunderstandings. In the book, The Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work, that John Gottman has, he outlines all that they went through in the research and how they found everything and what they felt were the answers and so forth. All this book about the research. And then he says, but most marital problems are based on misunderstandings.
Ah,
Well, that's the fact.
yep.
And the more you look out for misunderstandings, the less problems you're going to have. Because, for example, the four horsemen, you start out by assuming that they're being mean or they're being critical or
Yeah.
blaming me. It sounds that way to me. Well, if I'm assuming the best about you, I check that out. Honey,
Yep.
are you blaming me for this? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand exactly what you're saying. Well, no, I don't mean to blame you. I mean oh, okay. You know, so you want to check all these things out because they're little foxes that spoil the vine. What you assume, you know what they say about assuming. It makes an ass.
Uh-huh.
And that's really true in a marriage. And it's in really small ways. You can assume something and then you react to it. That's a trigger. See? And then there's the fact that you've got some basic triggers built into you because dad was always on your case, or
Yep.
mom did this, or brother did that. And you're sensitive to certain things that'll trigger you when it seems like your spouse is saying that.
Wow.
So there's a lot of ways we can misunderstand each other.
Great. Well, I can't wait to talk more again next week. And there's still so much more to talk about. And at Aletheia Marriage, how do we contact you? Jim Ramsey, again, if you are just tuning in, we're excited to have him here. He is a family therapist, licensed marriage therapist as well. Tell us the best forms of contact, Jim.
Well, you can call me on the phone if you like, 406 370 3515. I carry my cell phone, so I'm pretty quick to answer. If I don't catch it for some reason, it'll be on, you leave a message. That's the best way to get me. I appreciate that. I like to talk to people.
Well, thank you again, Jim Ramsey. Always a pleasure having you here and
Thank you.
excited to talk more again next week. And these are very important issues. And I love the fact that you're here. You love your job. You do this on a daily basis and you have amazing advice and experience and it sets you apart. You do these conversations with your clients like this, right? Via Zoom, most of them?
Yeah, yeah. And then we do the preliminary stuff before we do the intensive
Yeah.
weekend. So yeah, about half of the time we're on the phone or computer, and half the time we're in person. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure having you back, Jim. Enjoy your day, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.